Yeah, dude. I don't know. How did you find this space? Talk some.
I originally found Paul Vanderklay on maybe he was a guest on some podcast or something. And then I found his channel, and then I found Luke. And I really resonate with the freedom of conversation, and like there's this jazz term. Forgive me, I'm a musician. There's a jazz term called antagonistic cooperation, which is this feeling of being in an improvisational space with other musicians, where there's the song structure, the form, the changes basically, and then there's this invitation to antagonize that a bit and step outside the boundaries and maybe one up each other, maybe quote each other. There's a lot of like freedom and flexibility. And I've been Orthodox Christian for the last 18 years. And it's rare to find, at least in this current ecosystem of Orthodoxy, it's rare to find free thinkers out there on the internet. So it was refreshing to run into Luke. And
there's a lot of conversations around all those things. As you've probably already discovered, I've talked to like a dozen people on my channel, my podcast, like of that are Orthodox. I went to the Orthodox church for the first time, visited a few weeks ago. But so I liked what you're talking about conversation, though, the back and forth, the interplay related to jazz, and that is one of the really in that level of musicianship and performance, when you're able to be proficient enough to talk back, to try to one up, to troll a little bit, but that is something that seems to be going on. How long have you been paying attention to this space with Paul and then with Luke? How long has that been?
I think it's just been a year or so. Yeah, it's probably been about a year, maybe a year and a half. I don't know.
Have you commented any?
A little bit on maybe some of Luke's stuff. I'm not prolific with my commenting.
Sure.
But I think I actually have run across your podcast as well. I need to make sure I'm subscribed.
Sure, go for it. Yeah, man. Get that sub.
we're all here to help each other.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah,
man. So you're jazz musician. Tell us. So you've been Orthodox for 18 years. You're a jazz musician, or it sounds like, I don't know. You're a musician.
I'm a musician.
What part of the country from?
I know some jazz chords. I fake jazz, but when I get around real jazz musicians, I'm like, guys, I only play in C and F. So
yeah, that's about I can just sit down and play power chords and C on the piano. That's about all. Yeah. I can do C sharp too, because it's all black or all white keys.
All black or all white. That's right. I live in Austin, Texas.
Okay. There's I think Emily in the chat. She's from Austin.
Oh, cool.
Food truck Emily. She's got a food truck somewhere in Austin.
Okay, I need to know about that.
Let's see, Emily Raj. If she's still hanging around, she could tell you her food truck. Yeah, so Austin, and yeah, what else? Tell us more about who you are. In the Paul Vanderklay's done 500 rando conversations, and the question he always opens up with: tell us about the house you grew up in.
Oh, great. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Well, I'll start with just how I got my name real quick, just kind of get that out of the way. So my parents were hippies, San Francisco Bay Area. There's two kind of like main categories of hippie. There's like your heroin hippies and your like live off the land, principled kind of hippies. We were the live off the land kind. And when their daughter Meadow was 2, they decided to build a boat from scratch and sail it across the ocean to Hawaii. And they didn't have GPSs back then. They had the stars. So they navigated by Rigel star, which is the left foot in the Orion constellation and motion of the ocean. By the time they got there, I was
Cooking.
I was cooking. Yeah, I was cooking. So
Wow.
grew up West Coast. I'm from a little tiny town in Washington State called Port Townsend. And in that town is where my dad built a 6-sided hexagon house. And that is the house I grew up in. Had a view, the Cascade Mountains, and grew up boating, and didn't have any sort of religious formation at all. I mean, I actually didn't even really know people went to church on Sunday until I moved to Texas. And then it's like, if you're not in church, you ain't American.
Yeah. That's kind of part of that question you asked Luke earlier about being American and being Christian.
Yeah.
That sounds like there's a little thread there. That's quite a story. Very West Coast. That's a very West Coast hippie story.
It is.
I've heard one recently, you were conceived in the middle of the ocean on the way to Hawaii, named after the star that your parents were following, and then settled in the Northwest in a 6-sided house. It's all sorts of interesting pieces there, named after a star.
I've told that story so many times. The conception part is just, I'm like numb to it, but it is always a little
it's fun
for people to hear.
You got a good line for it. Let's see, Emily. I can't highlight these comments, but I'm looking at them here. Emily said, I think she's saying that her food truck's called At the Domain, or it's At the Domain. I don't know if that means anything to Austin.
It's probably At the Domain, which is a place.
Yeah.
But maybe it is called At the Domain. At the Domain.
And she asked, what ortho church do you attend?
I go to St. John the Forerunner, which is in Cedar Park.
I think he lives on, there's a, wow, why am I blanking right now? There's a guy who hangs out in the corner that's Orthodox, Paul Rainier. Do you know Paul Rainier?
Mm-mm.
He's an Orthodox guy, lives in Austin, so I don't know how. I think he is. I think he's in Austin.
Well, love to meet him.
Yeah. So you've got that. You've been Orthodox. You said you also brought out this part about Orthodoxy, being in those Orthodox spaces, but then there's like some free thinking, or what's this place you've run into in your spiritual life that feels stifled or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is maybe where this is maybe my growth edge, where I'm kind of learning to love, as Richard Rohr says, the parts of myself that I haven't gotten to know yet, or that I'm like actively still fighting inside. But as you may or may not know, there's been kind of this flood of people into Orthodoxy over the last, I would say mid-pandemic is when we started seeing it in our parish. And a lot of them are coming from kind of the Jordan Peterson or Father Josiah Trenum scene, which is very, there's a certain feel of masculinity, and people are very like drawn to the masculinity of Orthodoxy, which I'm always like, really? Like, I kind of thought that Orthodoxy was actually very feminine, but
I can't remember. There's a lady on here who participates, and she's on. If you've seen Luke, you've heard of Grail Country probably a little bit. And her name's Sherry, and she says, I can't remember what they say. It's something about, I may get this backwards, but like the church space is feminine, but the like has like a type of a masculine leadership. It's got kind of the yin and the yang of it, less where you some of the the Protestant sectors, like in the Mark Driscoll type world. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but it's like this hyper masculinity in this flat, space. So that's really the only thing that seems to like come through. But then if you have like the Theotokos, like that's something that represents like the divine feminine to help like shape that space. That's kind of what I seem to have like recognized in my engagement with Orthodoxy on why, you know, the guys that have long beards and smoke cigars and pipes and like bourbon or whatever, you know, it's like, or like, okay, there's like a thing here, you know.
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, as I'm putting myself, I mean, here's the thing. Part of it is I was one of these guys like 18 years ago. So part of me is like still kind of reacting to this part of myself that I'm trying to like distance myself from.
So what did get you, if you weren't raised in church, what like brought you to the Christian faith?
Yeah, well, I mean, it started in gosh, it was probably 2001 or 2002. I was in real estate, and I'm like telling you my salvation story.
My brother, testify thy testimony
from the mountaintops of the YouTube algorithm.
No, this is where it bottoms out. This is from the valley, man.
This is the valley. Hey, valley. Cheers to the valley, brother.
Cheers. This old water bottle.
Good. So I was going to Dallas to a motivational seminar, and a couple of guys I went up there with, like hyper evangelical Christians. Something cracked open up there where they were talking about like giving without an expectation to receive. And I was like, wow, that I've like not been around that. That's a very fresh concept. And they, you know, next thing they're like, oh, this is a doorway to the Lord. And so they like invited me. I don't know how we got onto it, but they saw the opportunity to invite me to invite Jesus into my heart. And like in that car ride, like we were driving back from Dallas, and I had a freaking Holy Spirit. I mean, maybe it was a psychological thing, but like it was a physical presence that I felt in the car with us. And I like looked around and like, you guys feel that? And they're like, yeah. And we're kind of like having this moment together. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I am now a Christian. What does that mean? And I started like church shopping. I ended up at a Baptist church that just had like a really great singles department. You know, I needed like good influences on me. I wasn't a bad kid at all. I was like pretty straight-laced growing up, as far as the people in my hometown go. But you know, it was a really friendly, like Bible-based, you know, like there was a Bible with our group at all times. You know, we were memorizing scripture. But I was a little bit of a fish out of water because, you know, I've got some hippie roots. I mean, my full name is Rigel Windsong Little Deer Thurston. Okay. Like I can freaking flash my cards.
Little Deer. You got, man, I love that.
And this was right around, were you in this space when like the whole emergent movement was happening, like the Donald Miller?
Yep. Thing? I was reading him in high school, and then I was an evangelical worship leader for like 15 years. So
I was too. Within a month of joining this Baptist church, they're like, "Oh, you're a musician? We'll just get you plugged in." And like their fangs are, you know.
Don't worry, you're in good company. I see your piano back there.
Good, but the thing is, it's all part of my like, part of my journey, and I loved like learning that music and singing harmony. I hadn't really sung harmony with people. I was always like kind of a solo singer. So there's a lot of beautiful things that came out of that time in my life, but some really tragic things happened. My sister died. I started questioning lots of things and like wondering, like, I have friends that are gay and I don't want to be like a jerk to them because of my faith. And so, you know, I started like exploring other churches, ideas. Rob Bell was like very influential on me. Sure. I think actually Rob Bell was the first kind of taste of Orthodox theology, actually. He had this series called like The Flames of Heaven Are Awfully Hot or something like that. And anyways, so there were lots of like little seeds that were planted. And I found my way into the Orthodox Church. That's like a whole nother 20-minute story. But
I've got time today. That's why I'm on here.
Cool. Well, so I'm in this like transitional questioning, exploring phase. And I went to a silent monastery, a Catholic monastery in Texas called Leb Shemaya. And my buddy and I were sitting at this table, like it was like a 12-person, 15-person giant wooden table, and you're all sitting in silence, like forks clinking. And I'm used to getting people to like me by talking to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm just totally out of my element, very jarring to my like way of being around people. And this nun was sitting across from us, and she like whisper screams across the table, and she's like, "Hey, are you all priests?" And we're like, "No, we're Protestants." I didn't even know if like priests were Christian, because that sounded Catholic, and as a Baptist, Catholics aren't Christian.
Oh. You're preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir. And she was like, "I see you're reading I was reading a Thomas Merton book called like Contemplative Prayer or something like that." She's like, "If you like Thomas Merton, let me show you, some other books." And she took us up to the library, and she gave my friend the Philokalia, which is like not a beginner book. And she gave me The Way of the Pilgrim, which was this kind of like, it was like a really popular book in Russia, I think, back in the 1800s or something. It's about this like wandering monk, wandering like homeless dude, really, who's trying to figure out what it means to pray without ceasing. And, I was like, up until that point, prayer was mostly just asking God for shit that I want, whether physical things or just things to go my way. And I didn't really know that there was a Christian tradition of actually just like silent prayer and connecting directly with God. And
like through the Jesus prayer.
Yeah, the Jesus prayer, which has many forms. There's it can also just be silent prayer. But yeah, it's the Jesus prayer like contains all of those kind of prayer of the heart practices. And that got me down this, rabbit hole of like, what is Orthodoxy? And I had a friend going to seminary out in California, and he was like, "Hey, you got to come meet my Greek Old Testament professor. He's an Orthodox priest, and he's like Santa Claus in real life. You got to come out and meet him and hang out with me." So met this guy. He was like Santa Claus in real life. Super sweet human being. And we went on a field trip and went to an Orthodox service. And I was surprised by how Christ-centered it was. And as a Baptist, that's like the most important thing. And he gave me a book just introducing like the faith. And I was on the plane ride back home from Redding, California. And walking down the aisle, you're getting the full story here. Walking down the aisle.
It's not just me. Keep going.
Good. The whole world.
We're live streaming this rando. Keep going.
This is great. So I have this book. I had gotten to the point where like I knew that in 1054, the Orthodox and Catholic faith had like split. into two churches, and I see this guy walking down the aisle. He's wearing a black cassock and a white collar. I'm like, Catholic priest. I hide my book, and he comes and sits right next to me. And I'm like, are you a Catholic priest? And he's like, I'm a Greek Orthodox priest. Like, all right, you all that desperate? So I just pelted him with questions about like Mary and the Pope. Those were the two things that I was just like, this is like a deal breaker. And the way he talked about it just totally disarmed me. And I was like, oh, okay. So a lot of the language in Orthodoxy is the same as Roman Catholic, but it kind of means something a little bit different. There's this apophatic kind of approach and mystical side and symbolism that is like more than symbolism, yet there's just like a gentleness in the structure. And by the end of that plane ride, I was like, well, I either need to become Orthodox or start my own church. And I still am always dabbling with that idea a little bit, but that's when I started like searching around Austin and found an Orthodox church.
That's interesting. You either need to start your why was that the conclusion that you need to start your own church or you need to become Orthodox?
Good question. I'm kind of remembering this through new lenses. So I would say that there was part of me that there's this like indestructible polarity of like express self and sacrifice self that I tend towards one or the other, and rarely do I bring them together in a beautiful dance. But I think part of that like express self part of me was just like, I don't want to be told what to do. I was already, me and my like guy friend buddies were, guy Christian friends. We had like a Bible study, and we had it figured out. And it's very tempting to just like start our own thing. But then Orthodoxy is like, yeah, that's the problem with Protestantism, is like, if you disagree, just like move further away. And I love C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, where people are just like moving further and further away. And I'm like in real estate in the time. And I'm like, okay, I want to be in community with my neighbor. And like, how do I do that? Which is so interesting about, coming full circle to this online space. At the time, I was like very anti-internet, anti-everything modern, And Orthodoxy is great at critiquing modernity. It's like, it's freaking superpower. But I found a lot of my people online, in online communities. I've built like a songwriting community, and I found people there. This space seems like fertile for people who I can challenge and support with. So anyways, that's how I came into the whole OC.
And now that I want to go back to that part where you were talking about the kind of the shadow of something that you see in yourself in these new converts. Like what is it that you're seeing that is annoying or something? I don't know if you said that directly, but it's like, I mean,
I think annoying is because
I've had multiple conversations with a young man. He's about 27. He's been Orthodox for about 7-8 years. And like the way we met was talking about Orthodoxy on a Paul Vanderklay live stream on a Friday back in the spring. His name's Joseph Lambrecht, and he just finished becoming a deacon, but he kind of has this same sentiment that in a way he's like, I don't know if this is good in a way or something like that. So whatever your critique is, I'm interested to hear.
Yeah. Well, I might have to like dig in and see what happens. Cause I haven't like really looked at my own critique, which is probably it's good for me that I'm doing this. I mean, I think what probably is happening is the people who are influencing new converts, like a lot of them, I actually get to know them and I just like them and they like me and we get along, even if we're like totally on the different side of the political spectrum, or we misunderstand each other's underlying values. I bristle at some of these online personalities and then kind of their online little minions that follow them around. And so I think I conflate a lot of that with the person in front of me. And I mean, the beautiful thing about in-person relationships is like some of that can dissipate if I make an effort to actually get to know them. A lot of times, you know,
on both sides of that, actually,
Yeah.
because it's like they may, you know, what's the guy's name? Jay Dyer? Is that his name?
Yeah. Oh,
like,
I know. Yeah.
So they may, you know, they may be coming from that, but like but if they're by themselves, like no matter who you are, no matter how based you are, you come into that place by yourself and you're kind of like, is anybody going to like me? Am I going to be okay here? You know, it's like you're human at the end of the day. And then this guy comes up and is like, been in the Orthodox faith for 20 years. And he's kind of like, hey man, tell me about your story. You know, like, oh, we disagree, but you were the person that came up, you know, it's like, that's reality. And there are things, and I think that's even to the point of this whole, how this whole stream started. It's like, there are these things that we're exposed to online, whether that's like Jay Dyer type things or all these things, and they get in our minds and they animate us and they hype us in certain directions. And that's why it's frustrating with YouTube. The way this whole conversation was even started earlier was like, we're going to strike you for even just trying to like wrestle with that a little bit publicly, you know, and, or whatever. That's not what's happening there. But I think even to some degree, it's like when we want to wrestle with these things in conversation, and then you get, you know, and you say something that, oops, it didn't, you know, that hit the filter, and it was like, and you're punished for that when you're really trying to make sense of the world. And so, yeah, that's frustrating. And that would be part of my critique to kind of what Alan was talking about earlier. But
yeah,
you know, go ahead.
Well, you bring up Jay Dyer, and that's one of the people that like really like that's a hard, quick trigger for me. But I'm gonna try to steel man a little bit here. Jay Dyer, you know, he's connecting to something in these men that are dealing with something, and they're feeling pulled towards him for a reason, because something in their life is not working. Their like survival system is like outdated, and it's activating something in them. And what I find beautiful about Orthodoxy is it's like highest, and this is really weird to a Western mind. It's kind of its highest form of truth is participatory and not like rational.
Yeah.
And even you'll notice, like, I don't know how it is in every other Orthodox church, but like our priest has like 5-minute homilies, and then the service is like 2 hours. So, you know, 5-10 minute homilies, that gives you just a little sense of like what this is about. It's not, I mean, I sometimes take the homilies, sometimes leave them, you know, but it's this like this container that can contain all these different, like, I call them stages of development. And I'm a developmentalist, if you will, in my thinking. But, you know, I was in that place, I was in the, you know, late 2000s version of today's kind of masculine orthodoxy.
Like angst, existential angst or whatever.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I needed to own that angst and like differentiate. It's this differentiation energy that within the container of a community, if people actually stay and pray together and hate each other when they figure out that they're like different, and then get to know each other and realize that like, we don't, like communities go through stages of development too. And that like facade has to break a little bit for like real community to happen. And I read that in a book, 18 years ago, and it just kind of hurts when it's actually happening. Stings a little.
When it's coming from like a different angle than you're like, well, I can't relate to you on the specifics of this, but I can relate to you on the general sense of this, but still that's kind of like, oh, like I'd rather like relate to you on the specifics of where you're coming from. Maybe. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I'm kind of is the reason I kind of poked in on the start of church. I'm kind of helping on a church plan. I'm taking a bunch of Baptists and, basically we're going to become sacramental Presbyterians. And
interesting.
And so like the idea of what you're talking about, because, and it's a community, it's a high community of trust. And instead of trying to go and splinter into and yet one other non-denominational Baptist church, like, it's like, no, we want to attach ourselves to something, and it's not the hip and the cool attaching yourself to the OG, OC. But like crossing that threshold with a group of people, and who, because I also, this is the other part of the conversation, is like I don't live in a metroplex. Like right now I work part-time in Nashville, and and I'm staying with my sister, and there's like an Orthodox church like right down the street where she lives in kind of like South Nashville, and there's a lot of different cultures in that area. And so there's a lot of Orthodox churches, and but where I live in a 10,000 person town in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, there's like nothing. So even if that was like, even if that's what I wanted to go to, this like doesn't even make sense. And like the oldest institution in our town is the oldest city in Arkansas technically now, and the oldest institution is the Presbyterian Church, which they started a college there, and that's been the college in our little town for over 100 years. They almost and it's based off of that heritage. And so it's like, that's actually the oldest place. That's the most like centered town, the whole, that idea that I could even get to where I'm at. So it's like, there's interesting things related to that conversation about what it is that we're searching for in the meaning crisis type worlds and situations, and reaching back into history and into something.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, I don't know that I would be Orthodox if there was something like that. I mean, I don't know. Our circumstances are a little bit different, but
sure.
I remember, these old guys who had been in the faith for a long time, who were like more liberal than I was comfortable with, but I was like, okay, they'd say things like the East and the West are like two wings, that flap together or something like that. And like, we need each other. And I was like, that's bullshit. Like, we need to just like become the true church, There's that shadow side. I know. But like, I am now turning into that old dude. And I feel like the Catholic Church, the Protestant gifts, like they have gifts that I think the entire body of Christ needs, and that Orthodoxy is kind of like struggling without. I mean, I could go down kind of like a whole rabbit trail of like the things that are wrong with Orthodoxy, but
give us the top three. Give us the top three.
Well, we can't.
There's a lot of in this corner. There's kind of like, that's the battle is like, everything's like, oh, it's the hot new girl.
Yeah.
Like show us a few of the wrinkles that you can't see behind the filter. All
right. So I would say the one that bubbles up to the top is we can't call a meeting. We're really into the ecumenical councils. We can't freaking call a meeting. We have no one to call the meeting. Okay. And then we got close, and then they were arguing over like place seating arrangements around the table, and it blew up. So that's a hard one, because like if we're going to actually be kind of a relevant voice in this world, like we need to be able to at least talk about stuff together. But we can't like even call a meeting. So that is something that Rome knows how to do. They can call meetings, man, efficient compared to us. But Protestantism, it's interesting. I'm, as kind of a developmentalist, I don't know, Luke mentioned spiral dynamics earlier on. I don't know if you've run across any of that stuff, but that's kind of like a little bit of the world I live and breathe. And I think that like there are, Protestantism emerged in response to the pathologies of Rome, of this like hyper centralized system, and
corruption.
Yeah, totally. And part of that was like individualizing the faith. Like we all have access to the Bible, and the printing press emerged at that time, and so that made it possible. And it's just like this beautiful ability, that's not the right word, just response, I think, to a tough situation. And now we all have access to the holy books
and to each other, to the nature of this conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I first got on here and started playing with a YouTube channel. One of the things is like the digital, as beautiful as the walls of orthodoxy are, the digital is eating them right now. Like you can't, in a certain kind of way, we're having a conversation that is very Protestant in that way. Like, because you can't, the Catholic Church or what is the, a lot of times Luke gets on, he talks about what is Orthodox conserving. The conservation, the ability to conserve things physically is changing. With a library or a wall, or even with priests in a certain way. And I don't, which I like explicit hierarchy. I think it's that there's good there that Protestantism's gotten away from by making it all implicit. Like then you have to play like language games and it becomes manipulative to try to do some of that stuff. So I do think that the back and forth, like what we're gonna see over the next probably next 20 years is how this shakes out related to those poles of like we have everything, and it's really, it's weird because some of the things I kind of see, and if you were in that kind of emerging church thing 20 years ago, like there were a lot of really innovative ideas that were like, just like, let's try this. And I remember getting exhausted by that because like, let's do communion 10 different ways this year.
Yeah.
It's like that's a lot of planning. Who has to plan it? The worship leader, it's like, or whatever. But the interesting thing is that, then you kind of get tired of that. And then I want something that's old, stable, and solid. And you go to it, and the people that have been in that old, stable, and solid thing, they're kind of like looking for innovation in a certain way. And it's like, well, I've been in the innovation, world for the last 20 years and I'm tired of it. Like, so it's this weird push and pull. My friend, Joseph, I mentioned earlier, he was talking about things going on in his diocese, and they're looking at other denominations and how they're doing things good, which is probably anathema to say other denominations, but we'll just leave it at that. But they were looking at other Christian church groups saying, they're really good at that. I want us to become better at this as Orthodox.
Yeah.
And I don't know if and there's Luke Thompson chiming in, faithful innovation. Yeah. What does that mean? And I think that is, instead of innovation for innovation's sake, or innovation like with the evangelical telos of growth, of scale, actually, it's not even growth, it's scale. Right. And it's like, that's not healthy for people. Maybe products, maybe we we can scale these or something, but it's like people don't scale. People have, and I think that, I don't know if that's what you mean by developmental, like a developmentalist, like cultivating is more like that. That's like a growth word, and culture word or whatever. But
yeah. Well, I mean it in kind of, and I have to go in a minute because I got everybody coming, but a developmental in the sense of, and I mean, I feel like this is actually what tradition is integrating and like evolving and integrating the stuff that's come before in a way that is synthetic. But so I want to go back to something you said. You asked, like, what is Orthodox preserving? And there is this saying, orthodoxy is paradoxy. And I think a lot of times, like, one of those words that doesn't mean what it means out in the Western world is tradition. Tradition is like living, and where you hear it out in the rest of the world as this like static thing that we're preserving, and so I think that what we're preserving is the living paradox.
Well, I like it. Maybe that's what
I have to head.
Yeah, man. Hey, it was really nice to meet you, and I think everybody feels that way. Emily, I'm sorry I didn't get to bring your comments into the conversation. And Rigel, dude, have a good day, whatever you're about to do. Maybe writing session or whatever you're doing. But
yeah, man, just writing the song of life, bro.
Awesome, dude. Well,
right,
have a good day, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
I can't pull you out of the show. You'll have to pull yourself out.
I got it.
Because I have no control, Luke. I'm not an admin on any of this. I can't highlight comments. I'll go back and read some. Emily, the critique, attaching yourself to something. How about just Christ? What if it's all Christ? And that there's Christ in the institution, Christ in the person, Christ in the relationship. We have access to Christ. Seems Catholic Church made us forget that. Faithful innovation. Risen, not risen. I think there's a distinction here between access to the family of Christ and access to the authority of Christ, a tension between level and hierarchy. I like that. Further up, further in. Let's see. Emily, we can serve things that are limited, that we want to create the illusion of scarcity around. False weight of glory and of sacredness. I have to chew on that. And then rude. Sorry, Emily. I'm trying to now. And I can't show your comments. I'm just a participant here on Luke's Whitestone name FU stream. Let's see. I wanted Yon God. Yes, Jesus was not Dionysus. Eat me. I'm trying to better understand Yon God's trolling humor. I think it's been, I know he's participated a lot more in the last several months. Yeah, well, Luke, I know you're like, I don't know if anyone else has, I can't even bring people into the stream. So if you want to come back on for a minute and either offer the link, or I probably need to go otherwise, and I'll just shut it down. But if anyone's like, I want to come in and keep this thing going and had thoughts, okay, Luke's going to come in, and then he can, if there was other people that wanted to come in and give thoughts or talk for a minute, I want to open that. I don't want to shut it down prematurely. But yeah, this was fun. I got to play Grail Country channel to Luke's live stream today. I've got questions about this veil comment. I don't know. Lukey, yay for randos.
What's up, boss?
Hey, man. I just went with it. I just followed the logos.
Dude, that's all any of us can do, right? You received with meekness the implanted word. That's another way to say following the logos.
There's the link. Luke's dropped the link. See if anyone comes in and hangs out or wants. But yeah, I can't do much from here. So, but I did stream it to my channel. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it from my channel.
Here, I'm trying to pin it. Why can I not? Why can't I pin my own dang comment?
I don't know.
Open with YouTube is not allowing me to do anything anymore. They're like, you can't be trusted.
Yeah. I guess I can't stop it going to my channel now. I don't know how this works. I've not done this a whole lot where I've streamed it to another channel.
Dude, why? Why won't you let me pin it? It's only letting me.
You have to do it on your phone.
I am doing it from my phone.
Oh.
There, I got it. Pin message. So now it's pinned on my channel. There's nobody else in here right now. I'm going to go do the elliptical. So I will.
It's all right. I'm going to head out, man. So if everyone's.
Okay.
Yeah. So if everyone's.
I really hope they don't remove this, because Jess would normally be here to take over or something, but he must be busy. Or Sherry or something. But I guess maybe Sherry doesn't. This is just on my channel.
Right.
So if people are just, Grail countryers, maybe I'll have to stop streaming to Grail country so I don't drag them down with me.
Well, you're dragging me down. I'm going down with you. I've attached myself to this stream. So.
You did, yeah. Well, and I appreciate that. You don't. It's for the persons.
There you go.
If you're a bird, I'm a bird, Seabax.
I like it. All right, man. Well, everyone, thanks for hanging around. That was fun getting to know Rigel and do the whole.
Yeah, that was so cool. I just told like his brief, how he was how his parents got together with Emotion on the Ocean and that whole thing and the hexagonal house and like saying all that. And my wife will just like shake. She's like, of course, these are like the people that listen to you.
Bringing out your spirit animals, your hippie spirit animals.
All right, Seabax, I'm gonna shut her down. Thanks for doing the randos. That was good.
Randos United for life.
Oh, Clara's here. Clara wants to say hi. Clara.
Okay. Clara.
Hi. You guys wrapping up? I didn't mean to.
I was wrapping it, but you can tell us your thoughts. Do you think you complimented me earlier? You said something nice.
Claire, I'm leaving, but it's not because of you. Just so you know.
It's good to see you, Seabax.
See ya.
No, I scrolled to the beginning and I was like, Luke is gleefully defiant. He's got gusto. Were you surprised they said something nice?
No, I wasn't surprised you said something nice, but that's the only comment that I saw is when you started watching it, and then you said, I don't know, you said something. You said something nice, so that was nice. I don't, how about this? Since I need to go do the elliptical, you get the last word. What do you think?
I just wanted to say hi and to support you in this YouTube fiasco where it seems like you're unjustly being attacked.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. YouTube, again, I apologize in dust and ashes. I probably will still keep doing what I'm doing, though, which is saying what I think, because I think, we can agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree without dividing relationship, To quote Bill Clinton, the last remaining acceptable form of bigotry is against those with whom we disagree. So I think we can not be bigots and disagree and still stay in communion and not ban and filter each other. I think it's possible.
Okay, I want to hear more another time.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
See you
Bye,
later.
everyone. Ending stream.